Let me start with a situation that I know is going to feel uncomfortably familiar. It's the end of the month. Your paycheck just hit your account. You feel that tiny rush of relief, like, okay, I survived another month. You check your balance. You're not broke, but you're not exactly relaxed either. And then it happens. Your car needs repair. Your phone cracks. Your insurance bill jumps. Or maybe it's just a random expense that comes out of nowhere. Suddenly, you're short by about $3,000. Not $50,000, not even $10,000, just $3,000. And instead of calmly handling it, you feel stress creep in. You hesitate. You swipe a credit card. You tell yourself, I'll figure it out next month. And here's the scary part. If that moment felt normal to you, if it didn't shock you, then you are probably making the exact same $3,000 mistake that 90% of Americans are still making today. And look, this has nothing to do with intelligence, nothing to do with income, and definitely nothing to do with being bad with money. It's way more subtle than that. My name is Abi, and I spend way too much time thinking about personal finance, money psychology, and why smart people keep making the same financial mistakes over and over again. If you're someone who earns money but still feels financially fragile, stressed about unexpected expenses, or stuck in a cycle where progress feels painfully slow, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today, I want to break down one single mistake that quietly costs most people thousands of dollars, keeps them anxious, and blocks long-term wealth even if they're doing everything else right. So let's get straight to it. The $3,000 mistake is not buying coffee. It's not avocado toast. It's not vacations or impulse shopping. Here's what most people don't realize. The real mistake is not having a properly structured emergency buffer of around $3,000, and more importantly, misunderstanding what that money is actually for. Most people either don't have it at all, have it but spend it on the wrong things, or keep it in the wrong place, and that single misunderstanding triggers a chain reaction of bad financial decisions. The shocking reality. Statistics that hurt. Now, this is where things get uncomfortable. According to data from the Federal Reserve, nearly 4 out of 10 Americans say they would struggle to cover a $400 emergency without borrowing money or selling something. Let that sink in. $400. And when researchers look at slightly larger emergencies, around $2,000 to $3,000, the numbers get even worse. Even households earning 6 figures report feeling financially stressed by a $3,000 surprise expense. So the problem isn't income, it's structure. Why this mistake is so dangerous? Here's the thing. A missing $3,000 buffer doesn't just cost you $3,000. It quietly forces you into high-interest debt, destroys your ability to invest consistently, triggers emotional decision-making, keeps you living paycheck to paycheck even with a good salary, and worst of all, it makes you feel like you're always one mistake away from disaster. That's not a money problem. That's a psychological prison. Let's talk about the math. Simple but brutal. Look, let's do some very simple math. Say you face a $3,000 emergency. Scenario A, no emergency fund. You put it on a credit card with an average 20% interest rate. If you take 2 years to pay it off, you'll pay roughly $600 to $700 in interest. That's money you get nothing for. Scenario B, emergency fund exists. You pay the expense in cash. Zero interest, zero stress, zero spiral. Now here's where it gets really interesting. That $600 to $700 in interest isn't just lost money. If invested over 30 years at a modest 8% return, that same amount could grow into several $1,000s. So one missing buffer today quietly steals from your future self. Why smart people still make this mistake? Now, you might be thinking, okay, Abi, I know I should have an emergency fund. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Totally fair. But here's what most people don't realize. This mistake isn't logical, it's psychological. The psychology behind the $3,000 mistake.
Humans are wired to prioritize visible rewards, immediate gratification, and progress that feels exciting. An emergency fund is the opposite of all three. It's boring, invisible, feels like doing nothing. There's no dopamine hit from watching money sit there. So instead, we invest too early, over-optimize credit card rewards, and focus on growth before stability. It feels productive, but it's backwards. The false security trap. Here's another psychological trick your brain plays on you. People tell themselves, I have a credit card. I can always pull from investments. My income is stable. But those are not safety nets. Credit cards are expensive loans. Investments fluctuate, and selling at the wrong time locks in losses. True security comes from liquidity and control. A simple analogy that makes this obvious. Think of your financial life like a building. Most people are obsessed with building the top floors, investing, returns, passive income, but they never pour a strong foundation. So when a small earthquake hits, a medical bill, car repair, job hiccup, the entire structure shakes. A $3,000 buffer is not wealth, it's structural integrity. Why $3,000 specifically? Now, let's address the obvious question. Why $3,000, Abby? Why not $1,000 or $10,000? Great question. Here's why $3,000 is the danger zone. It's too big for most people to casually absorb. It's small enough to feel manageable, so people procrastinate. It covers most real-life emergencies without panic. It's the threshold where financial stress flips from annoying to destructive. The snowball effect of this mistake. Here's how this mistake compounds over time. No emergency fund, small crisis hits, you use debt or sell investments, progress slows, motivation drops, you feel bad with money, you avoid looking at finances, the cycle repeats. This is why so many people feel stuck for years, even decades. What most people get wrong about emergency funds. Here's what most people don't realize. An emergency fund is not a savings account for vacations, a backup for impulse purchases, a place to park leftover money. It has one job, to buy you time and calm when life goes sideways. That's it. How to build the $3,000 buffer without feeling overwhelmed. Now, let's get practical. If you don't have $3,000, do not panic. You don't need to do this overnight. Step 1, set a non-negotiable target. Not whatever I can save, not maybe next year. Set a clear number, $3,000. Step 2, automate small wins. $50 a week is $2,600 in a year. $250 a month is $3,000 in 12 months. This is boring, and that's exactly why it works. Where to keep this money? Critical detail. Look, this part matters. Your emergency fund should be liquid, safe, boring. High-yield savings account, not stocks, not crypto, not locked investments. Because when emergencies happen, speed matters more than returns. What to do after you build it? Here's the cool part. Once the buffer exists, your stress drops, your investing becomes calmer, you stop reacting emotionally. You make better long-term decisions. This is where it gets really interesting. People with emergency funds don't just save more, they earn more, because they're willing to take smart risks without panic. A quick story, realistic and relatable. I've seen this firsthand. Two people, same income. One has no emergency fund, the other has $3,000 saved. When a job disruption hits, person 1 panics, grabs debt, accepts bad opportunities. Person 2 pauses, thinks, and chooses better outcomes. Same money, wildly different futures. Addressing the biggest objection. Now, you might be thinking, but Abby, inflation makes holding cash stupid. Look, inflation matters, but being forced into debt or selling investments at the wrong time costs far more than inflation ever will. Cash isn't an investment, it's insurance. The bigger picture. Here's the truth no one likes to say. You don't build wealth by maximizing returns first. You build wealth by eliminating fragility. and the $3,000 mistake is pure fragility. Final takeaway, strong and motivational. If you remember only one thing from this video, let it be this. Wealth doesn't start with investing. It starts with stability. And stability starts with a boring, unsexy, powerful $3,000 buffer. Fix this one mistake and everything else gets easier. Call to action. If this video helped you rethink your approach to money, hit the like button. It really helps the channel. Subscribe if you want clear, honest, no BS financial education that actually improves your life. And comment below, do you already have an emergency fund, or is this your next goal? I'll see you in the next one.